She watched him tame the deadliest beast alive. With nothing but his hands, no way did she just say that out loud in front of the entire council. Captain Rian Holt, standing in the middle of a ring of tall, blue-skinned alien women, blinked once, then twice. He wasn't sure if the translation unit in his ear was glitching, or if the tall one with silver eyes had just declared very seriously that she wanted to study him, physically. Thoroughly, for scientific reasons. He wasn't exactly new to alien encounters. First contact with a dozen species had taught him to expect the unexpected. This was new. The alien woman commander Alira of the Vari hunting clans stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Long white hair braided with feathers and bones, her silver armor gleaming under the alien sun. Her expression was cool, clinical, like a scientist examining a strange new animal, which Rian supposed he kind of was. Your species shows remarkable resilience, physical density, and curious mating characteristics, Lyra said, her voice smooth, but firm. We would understand more by observing directly. Someone in the council murmured in surprise. Another coughed to hide a laugh. Rian scratched the back of his neck, trying not to look too proud, too amused. Well, he said, I'm all about interspecies cooperation, but maybe we should discuss boundaries first. Illyra's brow lifted slightly, her lips twitching in what might have been the beginning of a smile or a threat, hard to tell with Vari women. They were strong, silent types with muscles like sculpted stone and eyes that missed nothing. The fact that their entire warrior caste was female hadn't escaped Rian's notice. Neither had the way they looked at him, like a puzzle, a threat, and maybe a bit of curiosity. It had started 3 days ago when his shuttle crash landed in the thick jungles of Vera Prime. The mission was routined. Liver supplies, set up a listening post, and head back to the orbital station. But nothing ever stayed routine in deep space. One malfunction, one ion storm, and suddenly he was alone. Gear half-burned and surrounded by forests thicker than a Venusian swamp. Rian had survived worse. He built a signal beacon, rationed what little food he had left, and started looking for help. That's when he met her. Alira had dropped from a tree like a predator, spears drawn, face unreadable. She could have gutted him on the spot, and judging by the strength in her arms, she would have done it cleanly. But something stopped her. Maybe it was his calm. Maybe it was his broken translator. Maybe it was his shirt being half burned off and revealing just enough of his chest to spark curiosity. Whatever the reason, she didn't kill him. Instead, she brought him to her people. The Vari were cautious, proud, and deeply suspicious of off-worlders. Their planet was rich in resources, and they'd kept it protected for centuries, especially from species like humans, who tended to take more than they gave, right? He hadn't come with weapons or demands. He came with injuries, honesty, and he admitted it, a bit of charm. Over the next few days, he adapted. Helped repair some damaged equipment, taught them how to better secure their perimeter sensors. Even impressed a few of the younger huntresses by lifting a fallen tree by himself. Apparently Vari males weren't built the same as humans. Smaller, thinner, more efficient, sure. But Rian was built for frontier work. He was big, tough, and by local standards, very exotic. That's when Alira started watching him more closely, not just during sparring or strategy meetings. During meals, during downtime, during late-night walks near the glowing riverbeds, he caught her glancing at him when he stripped off his shirt in the heat. She never said anything, but her gaze lingered longer each time. Then came the council meeting. He'd been invited to propose a formal alliance. Rian expected resistance, expected to be grilled about human politics, history, intentions. He did not expect Alira to stand up in the middle of the meeting and suggest intimate observation. The room was still quiet. Every eye was on him, waiting. Rian cleared his throat. Commander Alira, he said, doing his best not to grin. For the record, I'm flattered. Very. But if I agree to your scientific study, we're going to need some ground rules. I got a reaction. Ripple of laughter, quickly stifled. Alira nodded once, the corner of her mouth finally curving up in a true smile. Agreed. We begin the study tonight. Privately, Rian stared at her, half wondering if she was bluffing. But the look in her eyes said otherwise. Serious? Intent? Maybe? Too serious? He was in trouble. And he was pretty sure he liked it. Asterisk. Rian hadn't expected scientific study to begin with a ceremonial bath. But there he was, stripped down to his shorts, sitting in a shallow pool of warm, mineral-rich water, surrounded by smooth stone and thick jungle vines. While a group of very assistants, young huntresses with curious eyes, poured fragrant oils over his shoulders. You must be purified before contact. One of them explained, avoiding his gaze but sneaking glances at his chest every few seconds. Rian looked up toward the moonlight, filtering through the canopy, trying to stay calm. You sure this is normal? He asked. It is for the honored guest of the commander, said a different huntress, this one older, with glowing blue tribal paint on her arms. She has chosen you for touch right. This is sacred. Touch right. Oh boy. Back home, this would have been a scandal. On Vara Prime, apparently, it was foreplay with formalities. He was towel-dried with rough, perfumed cloth, handed a simple robe of soft animal hide, and led barefoot through the jungle along a torchlit path. The air smelled of wildflowers and something spiced like cinnamon and cedar. The Vari settlement had a strange beauty to it. Their dwellings weren't buildings, not in the human sense. They were tree-grown structures, homes woven into the living jungle, glowing with soft bioluminescent light. Rian followed in silence, his muscles sore from the ritual bath, his mind spinning with possibilities. When he reached Alira's quarters, if it could be called that, he found her waiting. She stood at the center of a large platform wrapped in hanging silks, her silver armor gone. In its place was a loose robe of deep purple, open at one side to reveal a toned leg painted with streaks of glowing blue. Her hair was undone, long and wild now, like white fire in the moonlight. No weapons.
Almer.
Just her. You came, she said softly, stepping forward. You invited me, Rian replied, trying very hard to focus on her face. Alira circled him once, slow and deliberate, her eyes roaming over him like a scanner. They said you were different, the humans. Built for war. But you're something else, Rian chuckled. You mean tall, clumsy, and weird-looking? No. She stopped in front of him, looking up. Powerful, intense, dangerous in ways my people are not. Her hand rose to touch his chest palm, flat, firm. You burn hotter than us. Your heart beats faster. You'll heal quicker. Even your scent is... bold. Rian raised an eyebrow. You've been sniffing me? You're hard to ignore. He wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a threat. Maybe both. Then Alira did something unexpected. She stepped back and sat cross-legged on the floor, patting the space across from her. We share breath. Before touch, we must share words. Rian sat, folding his long legs awkwardly, mirroring her. All right, words first. I can handle that. Lyra's gaze softened. I want to know what drives you, human. Why you came to this star. Why you risked your life for an alliance with a people you've never met. Because we need allies. Rian said honestly, the outer colonies are dying. The Void Raiders hit our stations last month. We lost hundreds. I was sent to find anyone who could help. And you found us. I did. She tilted her head. And what did you expect to find here? He hesitated. Honestly. Resistance. Maybe a warning shot to the head? You people don't exactly put out welcome mats. Lyra smiled faintly. We protect what is ours. You're not afraid of being alone. Neither are humans, he said. But we're tired of it. The wind rustled the leaves above them. A faint hum of jungle insects filled the silence. Then Alira leaned forward, her face inches from his. You speak like a warrior, she whispered. But your eyes, they are not cold. I see longing in them. He didn't deny it, you see. A lot. Then let me show you what I see in return. Her hand reached out, brushing along his cheek, then down his arm slowly, deliberately until her fingers laced with his. Her skin was cool, textured like velvet, the faint pulse beneath. The touch right begins, she murmured. Rian swallowed. You're sure your people are okay with this? She smirked. They think you'll break. I think they're wrong. I'm gonna regret asking this, but break from what, exactly? Illyra didn't answer. She rose in one smooth motion, pulling him to his feet with surprising strength. The robe on her shoulders slipped, revealing more glowing paint tribal markings that curved across her collarbone and disappeared behind fabric. Vari mating, she said, stepping close is not ... passive. Rian blinked. It noted. And if I am to bond with someone, she added, voice low and electric, I must know he can endure. Rian grinned, confidence kicking in. Then it's only fair I get to test you too. For science? Illyra laughed, a deep, rich sound, and it was the first time he'd heard her let go. No command, no caution, just her. I think, she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. We are going to enjoy this study. Then the silks closed. Around them, the torches dimmed, and the jungle listened as two warriors from different worlds began an ancient ritual neither fully understood, but both were eager to explore. Far above, stars spun silently, and somewhere in the middle of it all, human and alien made contact in the most intimate way possible. Tomorrow, there would be politics, trials, battles to come, but tonight was for discovery. Rian woke up, tangled in a mess of warm furs, the scent of strange flowers. And Illyra. The early light filtered through the woven canopy above them, casting soft shadows across her blue skin. She lay beside him, breathing slow and steady, a single arm draped. Across his chest, her hair once neat and braided, now spilled wild and free across her shoulders. And despite the aches in his muscles, despite the claw marks on his back and the bite-shaped bruise near his collarbone, Rian smiled. It had not been what he expected. It had been better. Not just pleasure. Connection, that strange sense of being. Seen, understood, wanted, not because of his rank or strength, but because of who he was beneath all that. He turned his head slightly, studying her features. Sharp, regal, alien, but beautiful in a way that made his chest tighten. Are you watching me? Lear's voice came sleepy but amused, her eyes still closed, just checking to make sure I survived the night. You did? She cracked one eye open, barely. Rian chuckled. You call that a scientific study? She smirked. There will be more tests. You are still under evaluation. He shifted, wincing slightly. My lower back says I passed something. Your back, she said, now fully awake and rolling on top of him, is nothing compared to what comes next. Oh great, there's a next. But her mood shifted, then he felt it, even before she spoke. She moved to sit beside him, knees drawn up, staring out through the silken curtains that fluttered in the morning breeze. My people saw the torch last night, she said quietly. The one we leave burning after a bonding? Rian sat up slowly. They know everything. Her voice was soft, not afraid. Illyra didn't do fear, but cautious. Like a leader facing uncertain terrain. You said they'd accept it. Some will, she said. Some already respect you. Others, not yet. You're not just an outsider, you're human. And we don't bond with humans. Well, Rian said, resting his hand over hers. You just did. Away. That meant something. The council meets at midday, she said after a moment. They want to speak with you, not as a guest. As something more. Rian raised an eyebrow. Something more? She turned to face him, serious now. You've entered the commander's tent after ritual touch. That's not a private act, it's a claim. In very custom, you've announced yourself as a potential mate. There was a long pause. Wait, hold on, Rian said, blinking. Mate. Like, ... permanently. It can be challenged, rejected, but only through trial. Rian leaned back on his elbows. Trial, right? Of course. Let me guess. Involves sharp weapons and a crowd. She nodded slowly, and blood. But not death. Comforting. Illyra stood and began pulling on her ceremonial armor, piece by polished piece. She moved with practiced efficiency, but Rian noticed something new, a hesitance in her shoulders, a stiffness in her hands. "You nervous?" he asked. "I never expected." She stopped, frowning, then started again. "You are not weak, Rian Holt. You are strong, unpredictable. But if the clan sees you as a threat to tradition, they will not wait. They will act." He rose to his feet, wincing again. "You think they'll challenge me? They already have." She didn't answer. "Who?" he repeated more firmly. Illyra met his gaze with a look that was hard and apologetic. All at once, a second in command. "Kesh. He trained beside me since childhood. He assumed, that one day we would bond." "There's always a Kesh," Rian sighed. "So this guy's in love with you. He respects me," she said carefully, "and I respect him. But what we shared last night, that was different." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. It was her. Expression softened. "Then fight. Not just for the right to stand beside me, fight to prove that your kind deserves to." The council gathering was held in a stone-ringed arena built into the side of the jungle's tallest ridge. Ancient vines draped across the smooth platforms. Dozens of Vari huntresses, silent and painted in glowing war marks, stood along the rim. Watching at the center stood Kesh. He was leaner than Rian, but sharp-toned. His blue skin was marked with long red streaks of challenge. Ceremonial spear rested in his hand, its tip obsidian black and humming with a strange energy. Rian stepped into the ring, wearing only light armor over his chest and thighs, a ceremonial blade strapped. To his side, no helmet, no shield, no translator in his ear. He didn't need it. This wasn't a conversation. The matron elder raised her hand. "Human, you enter this ring to defend your bond to the commander?" "I do," Rian said, voice steady. "And you," she turned to. "Kesh challenged the Union." Kesh nodded. "I do. The bond is untested. The outsider has not proven his worth in battle, in blood, or in will." "Then let the right begin," the matron declared. The fight wasn't like anything Rian had trained for. Kesh didn't strike with brute force. He moved like wind, dodging, flipping, using the terrain. He tested Rian with feints and distractions, trying to wear him down. But Rian had grown up on the outer colonies. He'd fought pirates in zero gravity, faced off against giant sand lizards on Ganymede, and more than anything, he'd survived Illyra in bed. He could handle this when Kesh landed a hit. Rian grunted but didn't fall. When Rian caught Kesh's spear arm and tossed him into the dirt, the crowd gasped, but when Kesh slashed across Rian's ribs, drawing a long, shallow line of blood, something in Rian snapped. He remembered what this was really about. Not pride, not custom, not even Lil. It was about them. The two of them. Something growing between two species, two minds, two hearts, and he wasn't going to lose it. Rian dropped his weapon, grabbed Kesh's collar, and used gravity to slam him into the ground with a thud that echoed through the jungle. The arena fell silent. Kesh coughed once, blinked up at him, then gave a single, respectful nod. "Yield," the matron stood. "The outsider is now bonded in truth. Let all challenges end." Illyra stepped forward, her face unreadable. Rian braced himself. Then she kissed him. Hard, in front of everyone. The crowd didn't cheer. But they didn't attack him either. Progress later. When they walked side by side back toward her quarters, Rian grinned, wincing at the sting of his ribs. "You know," he muttered, "next time let's just skip to the kissing part." Illyra chuckled. "You still have 2 more trials ahead." "Of you, Rian Holt," he groaned. "Of course I do." But when she reached for his hand and didn't let go, he knew he'd face 1,000 trials. If it meant keeping that connection, he wasn't just an outsider anymore. He was hers, and that was worth bleeding for. The firelight danced across. Their skin, as the drums of the Vari, echoed through the jungle night. Rian stood at the edge of the celebration, watching Illyra speak with the elders. Her back was straight, her voice calm, but he could feel her tension even from here. The clan was divided, some impressed by his victory in the ring, others still cold, still cautious. He had won the challenge against Kesh, but respect was earned over time, and time was running short. 3 days had passed since the fight. The clan had given Rian a place to sleep, food to eat, and even a ceremonial cloak to wear during village gatherings. He was no longer an outsider, but not yet a brother, not yet family. Illyra returned to his side, her expression unreadable. Passed him a carved cup made of dark wood. He took it without asking. "Well," he asked quietly. She sighed, watching the flames. "Some of the elders believe the bond is emotional, that we were impulsive. They think this was just a fling. Do not understand what you are yet, what you could be." Rian looked down at the drink. "And what do you think I am, Illyra?" She turned to him slowly, her silver eyes soft in the firelight. "You are a human who has walked into the heart of our world, bled for our people, fought one of our strongest and kissed me like I was your home." Rian blinked. That answer hit deeper than he expected. He reached for her hand, weaving his fingers between hers. "Then tell them that I did." And Illyra smiled faintly. "The matriarch wants to speak with you tomorrow. Alone." Rian raised a brow. "That's either very good or very bad. She is ancient, wise, and sharp." Illyra hesitated. "She has never approved of bonding outside the very bloodlines." Rian didn't flinch. "Then I'll change your mind." Illyra tilted her head. "You really think you can win over a woman who's lived through 5 wars, raised 6 daughters, and once stabbed her mate in the thigh because he snored too loud? I like my odds." That made her laugh, really laugh. For a moment the weight lifted, but only for a moment, because before either of them could speak again, low hum rolled through the sky. Not drums, not music engines. They both turned, scanning the night sky. A red streak burned above the clouds, a trail of something entering the atmosphere too fast, too quiet. Rian's eyes narrowed. "That wasn't a meteor." "No," Illyra whispered. "That was a ship." The next morning, Rian stood in front of the matriarch's platform unarmed, dressed in his new ceremonial cloak, hands open at his sides. The elder woman, ancient and fierce, sat on a woven throne made of living rootwood. Her white hair was bound with teeth and feathers, and her gaze was sharper than a blade. "I watched you," she said without greeting. "You fought with fire. You bleed like one of us." "I also sweat more than one of you," Rian offered. "Pretty sure I'm leaking from places I didn't know could leak." The matriarch did not smile. "You slept with my commander." It started with silence, not fear, it's not anger. Just a deep, unnatural silence that settled over the very settlement like mist. Every huntress could feel it. The trees weren't singing, the insects weren't chirping. Even the glowing birds that usually nested in the canopy had vanished. Something was coming, and it wasn't far. Rian stood in the middle of the training grounds, arms crossed, sweat dripping down his back, his voice hoarse from shouting. Again, he barked. The group of young Vari huntresses in front of him flinched, then rushed to reload their makeshift launchers. A week ago, they would have ignored him. A human giving orders? Not a chance. But now that they listened, because 3 days earlier, had killed a void-born drone with his bare hands. Because 2 days ago, he had tracked the second landing pod and burned it before its beacon could activate. And because last night, when the clan's border scouts went missing, it was Rian who led the search party and brought them back alive. He was no longer the human. He was Illyra's bonded, and he was training the clan to survive. Illyra watched from the shade of a tree, arms folded, a rare smile on her lips. The other commanders gave her curious looks, whispered behind her back. Some were beginning to call Rian Korin, Varisha outsider who returns fire, a title once given to her late father. She hadn't expected this. Not from a man who fell from the sky smelling. It's like burnt metal and sweat. But now, she wasn't sure she could imagine a day without him. Rian called for a break. The huntresses scattered. Exhausted, but eager, he turned, wiping his face with a rag, and spotted Illyra approaching. "Did I overdo it?" he asked, voice low. You made Kesh vomit, she replied. Twice, you've earned a rest. Still mad at me? Not today. She glanced around, then leaned in. You're starting to sound like a Vari. Rian raised an eyebrow. Really? Should I paint myself blue and stop using contractions? Alira smirked. It's not. The words, it's the way you command. He stepped closer, brushing a strand of white hair behind her ear. And do you like it when I command? Her expression darkened, but not in anger. Too much, they shared a moment. Not a kista. Many eyes watching, but a glance heavy enough to start fires. Then a shout cut through the air. Matriarch summons you. A huntress called, breathless. Both of you. Urgent. Alira's expression shifted instantly. All warmth vanished. Let's go. The council chamber was loud with voices when they arrived. The matriarch stood at the center, holding something. Dark and metallic in her hand, a broken void-born helmet. Found near the old river path, she said. They've breached our territory, and worse, this one wore human design. Rian frowned.
Human design?
Alira's voice was cold. You think another colony betrayed us? Not New Terra? Rian said quickly. But not all human groups follow the same rules. Some. Freelance. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Mercenaries, smugglers, arms dealers. There. Were humans out there who would sell out entire planets if the price was right? You said the Voidborn were evolving, the matriarch said. Taking technology, learning, they are. They always do. But if they've started using human-made gear, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. Alira's hand brushed his under the table for comfort, for grounding, for what was coming. Next, the matriarch turned to the commanders. We must prepare the ritual evacuation plan and ready every spear. The Nexari, Alira added. A murmur rippled through the council. The Nexari were the great beasts of the southern jungle. Massive. Tusked creatures with armored hides and the temper of hungry volcanoes. They had been sacred for centuries, touchable, and our ideal. Until now, Rian trained the scouts to ride smaller beasts, Alira said. You can do the same with the Nixari. The matriarch raised an eyebrow. And if he fails, Rian stepped forward, and I get stomped to death by a 4-ton jungle monster. But if I succeed, we have an army the Voidborn can't match. The council went quiet again, watching, thinking. Finally, the matriarch nodded once. 3 days. Prove it. Later at their shelter, Alira pulled Rian down onto the soft moss bed, both of them still dusty from the day. You're not really going to do this, are you? She asked, fingers tracing the scar near his collarbone. Ride the Nexari? He asked. Absolutely. You're insane. Little bit. He kissed her shoulder, but mostly motivated. She lay back, hair splayed around her like a white halo. What happens after this war? Rian froze. She never asked things like that after, assuming we win, assuming you don't get flattened or melted or sliced. He looked up at the sky through the open canopy. Then, we build something. Together, Alira turned to her. Head watching him? You'd stay here? On this planet with you? He smiled. Anywhere. Her voice was quieter now. We don't do marriage, not like humans. But our bonds are real. We mark them with children. Rian's breath caught. She wasn't flirting. She wasn't teasing. She was inviting. I've never had a family, said slowly. Not really. I grew up on ships, stations, always moving. She reached for his hand, placing it over her stomach. Then stay, she whispered. Make roots with me. He kissed her, not like the first time, hot and reckless. This kiss was slower, deeper. A promise. 3 days from now, he'd face the biggest creature on the planet, and if he won, he wasn't just earning a place in her world. He was building a new one. With her. Asterisk. No one had ever touched a Nexari and lived. That was the first thing the huntresses told Rian. When he stood before the massive beast pen at the edge of the jungle, the second thing, they would not help him if things went bad. And judging by the size of the thing pacing behind the thick Bonan bamboo gate, things were about to go very bad. It was like a rhinoceros mated with a tank. It's 10 feet tall at the shoulder, with hide as tough as starship plating and 2 tusks the size of spears. Its eyes glowed faintly red, and every time it snorted, the earth shook. Illyra stood beside Rian, arms folded. Her face was calm, but he could see it tightness in her jaw, the way her fingers tapped against her side. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. He glanced at her. "If I don't, your people fight the Voidborn on foot. If it kills you, then I die a legend," he smirked. Illyra didn't smile. She stepped closer, pulling him by the front of his leather tunic. Her forehead pressed to his. "Don't joke," she said. "Not now. Not when I've finally found someone who sees me." Rian rested his hands on her waist. "Then believe me when I say I'm coming back, in one piece. And maybe a little." Bruised, she pulled something from her belt. A small, curved horn carved from Nexari tusk. She placed it in his palm. "This belonged to my father," she whispered. "He never used it, never had the chance." Rian closed his fingers around it. "I'll use it well." Then he turned toward the pen. The crowd fell silent as the gate opened with a groan of old wood and ancient fear. The Nexari stepped out slow. It's massive, breathing like a furnace. And then it saw him. Rian didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just stood there, breathing steady, heart racing like a war drum. "Come on," he murmured, stepping forward. "You and me, big guy." The Nexari bellowed and charged. The crowd screamed. Illyra started forward, but Rian didn't run. Instead, he dropped to one knee at the last second and threw the tusk horn into the dirt at his feet. The Nexari skidded to a stop just inches away. Pouring from its nostrils, it stared down at him then. It sniffed. Rian raised his hands. "Easy. Not here to fight. Not here to hurt you." The Nexari's head lowered. Its tusks brushed his shoulders. Everyone held their breath. Rian closed his eyes and reached up. His hand touched the beast's hide. Warm, rough, alive. The Nexari didn't move. Then slowly it let out a low huff and lowered its head. Rian exhaled. He climbed to his feet, fingers still resting on the creature's shoulder. And then, in front of the entire clan, he did the impossible. He climbed onto the Nexari's back. The crowd erupted. Illyra's breath caught. Her fingers trembled. The matriarch stood slowly, face unreadable. "A new rider walks among us," she said. "He is now Vari." Rian guided the beast in a slow circle. "One down," he called. "How many more?" "2 more in the southern pen," came the answer. "Males, mean." Rian grinned. "Perfect. I like a challenge." That night, as fires crackled and songs echoed through the village, Rian sat alone in the high tower, staring at the stars. Illyra found him there silent, bruised but smiling. "You've done what no one in 500 years has done," she said, sliding beside him. "You could have died, but I didn't." "No," she admitted. "You didn't." They sat in quiet for a long time. The stars overhead were strange and beautiful land-mapped territory, just like everything between them. "I was scared," Illyra whispered. "You?" Rian teased. "The woman who once threw a spear through a tree trunk?" "Yes. I've faced beasts, enemies, betrayal, but this." She touched her chest. This is different." He turned toward her. "'Cause it's not a battle you can win?" "No, because it's one I want to." He leaned in, his voice low. "You ever wonder if fate had a plan for us?" She tilted her head. "You believe in fate?" "I believe the universe throws us into impossible places to see what we'll do with them. And what have you done?" He looked at her eyes, lips, hands, heart. "I fell for an alien warrior queen who nearly stabbed me the first time. We met." She laughed, quiet and warm. "And you?" he asked. "I let a human crash into my world. Now I can't imagine it without him." She leaned into him, and their lips met, not desperate, not hurried. This kiss was slow, sure. The kind of kiss that made promises without saying anything at all. Afterward, She lay against his chest, her voice barely above a whisper. "If we survive the war," she said, "I want to raise our children in peace, in a world where our bond means something." Rian tightened his arms around her. "Then we'll make that world together." Far below, the Nexari beasts stirred, and in the far distance, beyond the ridges and glowing rivers, Voidborn prepared. But tonight, there was calm, there was unity, and there was love rising between two people who were never supposed to meet, but now. They were the reason their worlds might survive. Asterisk. The sky burned red as the Voidborn descended, from the mountaintops to the edge of the glowing river valleys. The Variland shook with the roar of droppods slamming into the jungle floor. Fire streaked across the heavens. The trees trembled. The air carried the scent of smoke, and metal war had come. And at the front of it, all on the back of a snarling or plated Nexari beast rode, a human no one had believed in when he first fell from the sky. Rian Holt, dressed in a woven mix of human tactical armor and ceremonial Vari war paint, Rian looked like something pulled from an old myth. His skin was smeared with blue streaks, a bone necklace at his chest, and the matriarch's own warblade strapped across his back. At his side, astride a silver-marked Nexari, rode Ella Ray, her eyes blazing like twin suns, her spear humming with energy. Behind them, hundreds of huntresses stood ready, on foot, in trees. On Beastback, this wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for home positions, Lyra called, her voice like a thunderclap across the jungle. "We hold the eastern ridge, let the metal ones come." Rian looked up. A wave of sleek, gray horrors crawled over the horizon Voidborn. Machines fused with flesh, walking death. 10 times their number. He raised his fist, signaling the first wave of scouts to fall back to the trenches. "Just remember," he called to his troops, "their machines were alive. They can't feel pain, yet to feel it hand." "Still fight," Alira smiled tightly. That was almost poetic. It's almost Rian agreed. "Then let's give them hell." The Voidborn struck like a storm. Claws tore through the trees. Sonic blasts shattered rocks. Drones zipped overhead like hornets. But the Vari were ready. Their traps sprang from the jungle pits, spikes, net snares. Huntresses leaped from branches, slicing through enemy lines. Nexari roared through the chaos, trampling metal underfoot. And Rian fought like fire. He moved through the battle like he'd been born in it, shoulder to shoulder with Alira, covering her blind spots, reading her movements. Their bond pulsed between them, not just emotional, but tactical. One thought. Heartbeat. One purpose. At one point, Alira went down pinned beneath a skittering Voidborn drone, its claws slicing into her armor. Rian was across the field, but he felt it through their link. He didn't think. He ran. He vaulted over to drones, slid under a collapsing tree, and hurled his warblade through the drone's core just before it tore through her chestplate. Alira gasped, blood on her lips. Rian dropped beside her. No, don't you dare, I'm fine!" she hissed, bleeding, not dying. He pulled her up, holding her close just for a second. "You scared the hell out of me," she smiled. "Then stay close." And he did. Hours passed like minutes. Blood, sweat, smoke, screams. Then, a terrible silence. The final wave had arrived. A Voidborn juggernaut, massive creature of steel and bone. As tall as the temple Trice stepped into the valley. Each footstep cracked the earth. Its limbs were cannons. Its mouth a living forge. It raised its arm to fire, and Rian rode straight at it. Alira screamed his name. Rian? No? But he didn't stop. His Nexari charged, fearless, and just before the Juggernaut's cannon could fire, Rian leapt from the saddle and landed on the beast's back. He stabbed his warblade into the spinal port, and he ripped the machine let out a sound like a dying star. It staggered and exploded. When the smoke cleared, Rian lay broken, but breathing in the dirt, surrounded by twisted metal and stunned silence. Alira ran to him, heart hammering like thunder. He opened one. "I told you I'd come back." She kissed him hard, right there in the mud, blood mixing with tears. "You idiot, you're idiot." The matriarch herself helped pull him to his feet. "It is done," she said simply. "We have one." 3 weeks later, the jungle was green. Again, the wounded had healed. The fallen had been honored. The voidborn threat was gone for now, and in a small clearing behind the main settlement, a new kind of ceremony took place. Lyra stood in front of her people, not in war paint, but in ceremonial white, her long hair braided with blue blossoms. Rian stood beside her, wearing a robe made from Nexari hide and human leather armor beneath. The bond they had declared privately was now made public. Before the matriarch and all the huntresses, they swore themselves not just as lovers, not just as mates, but as leaders of a new future, a very human alliance, a family that night. As the two of them stood alone under the stars, Rian held Alira close, his hand resting on the small curve of her stomach. "Still sure this is real?" asked. She looked up at him, eyes glowing like the moons above. "It's more than real," she whispered. "It's ours." And together, under a sky neither of them had ever expected to share, they watched the stars and imagined a world where their children would never have to choose between human and human, because they'd be both, and they'd be stronger for it. The end.